Turning attention to Europa League and Europa Conference League, Leverkusen against Roma. Roma have a slight advantage by a goal. Sevilla against Juventus. That one is tied up at 1. And that's where I begin here. JJ, I'm coming to you on this one here. Paul Pogba at the weekend. The scenes were disastrous. I watched the game. He looked very, very excited to be out there. And then all of a sudden, after a strange cross into the box, a strange movement, he went down. He walked towards his boss, and you could see immediately from his face, he knew something was wrong. This is not good. First start in just over a year. And I just kind of want to get your feeling from it, obviously being a French player himself.
Yeah, it's not good at all. It sounds like Pogba's season's over already. I mean, 22 minutes into it, it's pretty tragic. Also, it feels kind of sadly predictable. It's kind of in line with what we've seen from Pogba the last couple of years in his career. And fingers crossed that he does manage to turn it around. I mean, I think that certainly, puts a dampener on any hopes of Juventus maybe trying to cash in on him or using him to potentially bring somebody else in. They're now going to have to get him back on the pitch as quickly as possible. But you saw that glimpse when he came on, last week that, he can still add that bit of magic. But, there are going to be major question marks now for the remainder of his career, whether he can be, fit enough to really even function, And I think as well, there's going to have to be massive question marks now about whether we even see him play at international level again. It's not just him. You've got N'Golo Conte as well, who's had physical issues. This has sort of heralded the passing of the baton for Les Bleus in terms of, bringing in some of that new midfield talent. And it's sad. But equally at the same time, I think it now, offers up an opportunity for Didier Deschamps to move forward with other talented players. And this was always going to be the risk for Juventus as well. They knew that they were buying damaged goods when they moved for Pogba to bring him back in. It's very rare that a player will come back and be better the second time round than they were the first. But I don't think anybody foresaw this going as disastrously as it has so far.
Well, this has been a Shakespearean tragedy for Paul Pogba in a Juventus jersey. And JJ, everything you said, I agree with. But let's go back to when Juventus were monitoring this player. He was injured at United before moving to Juventus. You got an injured player who was rehabbing, coming into preseason, supposedly going to be fit, and then his body fails him and breaks down. This was always going to be a tall order for Paul Pogba and Juventus to be reunited, and it feels so good. Well, it's felt so bad, and I feel for him as a former player, but I just wonder what's happening off the field, because we've seen his focus linger away from football and into the business side, the sponsorship side, and is he really putting in the extra hours to get fit?
That's always been there, though, Mike. I think obviously it's very difficult for a youngster who's had immediate success at such a young age to keep their focus, especially when you consider your surroundings, your group, your friends, your family. A lot of them like the attention as well. It's difficult to maintain that focus. Injury is something I put in a completely different side of it. Sometimes your body just simply doesn't react. And I'm telling you, I can tell you from personal experience, I had injuries my whole career. My whole career was ruined because of injury. My mental health was ruined because of injury. And I can't even begin to imagine. You saw the tears from Paul Pogba's face there, what mentally he's dealing with. Now, he wants to be out there. We know he could be one of the world's greatest players if he was playing week in and week out. And it's a shame to see this type of injury. A couple of comments. Ali saying Pogba is done for me. It's a brutal moment for any footballer when you realize your body just can't keep itself together. Great point right there, Ed. Rafa saying Mike hitting the nail on the head. The whole world knew about Pogba's injury problems. And then Mike Graham Souness Lahoud says Matt Osman right there. Quick predictions for Europa League. Do you want to add, NRC?
Yeah, you're right in what you're saying. What we've got to also understand is sometimes it's also about rehab. It's different from different clubs. Sometimes it might not be the player, it might not be the way the player is. If you go to another club, the way that they structure how you rehab as a player might be different to what worked for you in another club. So that plays a part. Not necessarily always going to have the best doctor or the best physio. That plays a big part in how you see these situations turn out as well.
I don't want to criticize you, Mike, because you are right. I mean, how he handles himself off the field is tremendously important to your recovery and rehabilitation. But sometimes your body just doesn't answer, and there's nothing you can do about that. We've seen some of the world's best players have problems like that. I mean, let's go back to even in the Premier League. In your days, Nigel, Michael Owen, Giggsy, all those injury problems they had, there's nothing they can do about that. Maybe they could drink a bit less and focus a bit more, but, injuries is the worst part.
Yeah.
I think as well, like, you know, factor in that there's been quite a lot of, I wouldn't say necessarily all tragedy, sort of away from the pitch for Pogba, but it's been a lot of trauma. You know, it's not only sort of the blackmail situation with his family, but you've got his longtime agent, Mino Raiola, passing away. You know, that's a lot of stuff to kind of handle, you know, a lot of kind of loss, you know, and I think as well, it must have built up this massive sense of frustration because you said like he looks so excited to be getting back on the pitch. And I think that often contributes towards players pushing themselves too much, too quickly. You know, trying to ask their body to do stuff that it just simply can't do at that stage. You know,
Great
and that
point.
risks re-injuring, you know, what's already quite a damaged part of their body.
JJ, that's a fantastic point. Actually, just real quickly, I know this is a 4-hour show, but this real quickly is an important topic to discuss right here because Nigel and Mike, I want to get your points real quickly on this one. When I was injured, and it was forever in my career, I struggled to play 25 plus games in a single season because of hamstring injuries. My knees were all messed up. I had a bad injury when I was 16. I could say so many different stories, but mentally, the only place I was okay mentally was when the whistle blew and I was healthy and I was on the pitch. I had freedom. I had just this freedom to be able to express myself, to be myself. And the training ground gave me that too, but not as much as being out there on the pitch when there's 20,000 fans out there screaming, shouting, you've got pressure to play, to win. There's no feeling like it. And I always push myself back too quickly because I craved that feeling. Do you agree with that, Nigel?
1,000%. I can't disagree with you more. I'm sorry, I agree with you. It is. It's that there's such a freedom when you get on the pitch, and the mental side of things of when you're injured as a player, it's such a big toll that fans don't really get to understand. You start to worry if you're going to lose your place in the team. You don't play well, and the team starts winning and winning without you being in the team. Then people start thinking they're a better team without you in there. So all of that mental toll weighs on you, and then sometimes you do rush back when you're not fully ready because of the different levels of players that you are and how the team looks at you. So there's so much, and you're just so desperate to get back on there, to get that feeling again, to get that euphoria by being on a football pitch. And, you know, I agree with you.
Yeah, I think the hardest part for me was always once the team found momentum, or if the team was pushing for a trophy or pushing for something, you feel left out when you're on the sidelines. You feel left out when you're in the training room and not on the pitch, because winning, there is nothing like it. Pursuing a championship, pursuing a trophy, it's a feel-good factor within your locker room, unlike any other. And when you get on the field, my biggest issue was always trying to almost overcompensate by getting stuck in. Prove to myself, maybe going overboard with a tackle, and then maybe finding myself re-injured again and off. So I definitely feel for Paul Pogba. And in what I'm saying about his off-field life, it's not just a criticism of, you know, on player, but that does factor in just everything that's happened with him. It's so hard to stay focused in what JJ brought in the traumatic side. I totally missed that with Mino Raiola. There's a saying, and last thing for me, there's a saying in sports psychology: the body keeps the score. When you experience trauma, it goes somewhere and it goes into your body, and muscle tightness, things that maybe you haven't dealt with in a psychological basis, it does show up in your body.